when you compare the dates of the Gospels and how early they came out versus like Alexander the Great. Alexander is considered to be, you know, no sweat. The fact is he was a great emperor and he was a conqueror and so on. But the first biographies that are really solid came 500 years after the guy lived. Okay? So they're writing 500 years back about a history of him. We've got clips that go back to maybe within a couple months after the resurrection about Jesus, that we call creedal information that the Christians were passing among themselves. And one of the things is that when you look out at Alexander the Great, the fact is that there's no copycatting here. If there's any copycatting, this is just fake news.
It is. You know, there was talk that, he was really conceived by Zeus. Well, Alexander the Great's mother, Olympia, said, basically, I'm paraphrased, baloney. Stop slandering me and claiming that Zeus and I had some sort of relationship. And so she denies it. And so again, there's fake news.
And Buddha's mother, by the way, if you're moving over there, want to tell us what that one was all about?
I mean, Buddha, you know, some people say, oh, he was conceived of a virgin. Well, that's fake news. His story is really lost in the mists of history, but we know that hundreds of years after him, the legend developed that his mother had a dream in which Buddha
formed right out of a white elephant.
It entered him as a fully formed white elephant. And by the way, she'd been married for a while before he was born, so she wasn't a virgin anyway. And same with Krishna. You know, people say the Hindu god Krishna was born of a virgin. No, he had 7 previous siblings before he was born. So
then there's some other parallels that I remember people telling me about when I was in school. Dionysius and the god of wine and fertility, who also is known as Bacchus. And the fact is they were saying, hey, you know, the Christians copied from him. I think it was the other way, that those guys copied it from Christianity and tried to make it look that way. But the fact is there's a professor that I interviewed by the name of Edwin Yamauchi. And the fact is, this guy was so brilliant, written some of these big books. I asked him one simple question, and I bet I got 28 footnotes on this thing. And I had the scholars all listening in the back of this room while I was taping the program, and they were laughing their guts out because Yamauchi was just going down, boom, 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 boom. And he says, there's absolutely no evidence of a virgin birth for Dionysus. Okay? And I'm just saying, when you look into this, it's fake news.
Exactly. I mean, listen to the basic story. The basic story is that Zeus, in the form of a human, falls in love with the princess Semele, and she gets pregnant. Well, Hera, the queen, says she didn't like that, so she burns the fetus to a crisp. Well, Zeus supposedly rescues the fetus and sews the fetus into his thigh until she's born. How is that a virgin birth? It's just ridiculous. There's no parallel there at all.
One of the most prominent scholars at Princeton was J. Gresham Machen of the seminary. And he wrote a huge book, his magnum opus, called The Virgin Birth of Christ. And he took all of these legends and just sliced them up, okay? And it took him a long time just to get the book done. But his bottom line is, he said, could anything, when he's comparing that with Christianity, could anything be more utterly remote from the representation in Matthew and Luke than these stories of the amours of Zeus? Because Zeus had lustful thoughts about a lot of women. And the fact is, it's just nothing like what we find with the virgin birth of Mary and Jesus' birth.
That's right. The way the pattern is in these mythological religions involving Zeus and others is that these gods lusted for human women. And they would have offspring that were half human and half divine, and they had the same weaknesses and sins that everybody has. Well, that is totally different from the Christian religion and the birth of Jesus. There's just no parallel to be seen there. Besides which, in the Jewish culture was specifically against introducing these alien ideas, these pagan ideas into their faith. They guarded their beliefs in a very strict way and were not open to a lot of syncretism, that is, trying to introduce other religions and to make theirs something new.